G'day, welcome back to Cam's Corner. Today I want to kick over one of the laziest habits in safety and investigation. The old chestnut where something goes wrong, someone points at a worker and says, well, he chose to do the wrong thing. Case closed. Pack it up, print the poster, maybe throw in a refresher toolbox and call yourself a risk manager. Absolute rubbish.
Behaviour is not a personality trait floating around in the air like bad perfume. Behaviour is shaped. It's shaped by the job, the tools, the conditions, the supervision, the cues, the workload, the time pressure, the layout, the way procedures are written, and the way the organisation reacts when people speak up or don't. Now, before anyone gets twitchy, this does not mean people get a free pass. Personal accountability still matters. If someone makes an error, that's real. If someone commits a violation, that's real too. The safety-wise material is pretty clear on this. Human error shows up as slips, lapses, mistakes, and violations. Violations can be routine, situational, personal optimizing, organizational optimizing, exceptional, reckless. So yes, actions matter. But if your whole finding is worker failed to follow procedure, you haven't investigated anything. You've just described the last visible bit. ICAM was built to drag us past that rubbish. The whole point is to look beyond the sharp end and understand how latent conditions and active failures line up. Organizational factors, task and environmental conditions, individual or team actions, absent or failed defenses. In plain English, what was set up, what was going on, what did people do, and what barriers were missing or useless. Think about it like this. A person doesn't just wake up and become the kind of bloke who ignores risk. Workplaces teach people how to behave. They teach through what gets rewarded, what gets tolerated, what gets checked, what gets ignored, and what gets in the road of getting the job done. If the workshop's overloaded, the supervisor wants the job finished before knock-off, the proper gear's tied up somewhere else, and everyone's been getting away with shortcuts for 6 months. Don't act shocked when someone takes one more shortcut. The behaviour is an output of the system conditions. That's why in data gathering, we don't just ask who did what. We ask who, what, when, where, why, how, and then the magic follow-up. If not, why not? If there was a procedure, was it available? Was it suitable? Was it used? If not, why not? If training existed, was it relevant? Was competence checked? If not, why not? If supervision was required, was it there? And if it was there, did it actually supervise anything, or just own a ute and a title? Incidents are outcomes. Outcomes of pressures, cues, controls, and decisions. Sometimes the cue is the low sun washing out a signal. Sometimes it's a crowded road, a noisy plant area, a rushed handover, a dodgy layout, a vague verbal instruction, or a schedule that says safety matters right up until production is late. That's not theory, that's normal work. So if you're investigating behaviour, start by binning the blame-flavoured shortcut. Don't ask, what sort of person would do that? Ask, what sort of workplace made that behaviour likely, normal, or even sensible in the moment? That's where the learning starts. Here's the thing most places miss. The system is always teaching. Quietly, constantly, usually without putting it in the induction. Procedures teach, supervision teaches, rosters teach, workload teaches. The silence after a shortcut teaches too. A beautifully written procedure sitting in a folder no one can find teaches nothing. A clunky procedure that doesn't match the job teaches workers to improvise. A supervisor who says, follow the process, then praises the crew who got it done by cutting corners, well, he's teaching loud and clear, isn't he? The safety-wise guides make this plain. When you gather data, you look across people, environment, equipment, procedures, and organisation. PEOPO. Not because investigators like clever acronyms, though we do love a chart, but because work is shaped across all 5. People bring experience, fatigue, attention, skills, habits. Environment brings weather, visibility, noise, congestion, surface conditions. Equipment brings design, condition, labels, integrity. Procedures bring availability, suitability, content,
revision control. Organisation brings planning, communication, resources, contractor management, training, culture, learning. That's the system of work.
And what happens over time? Workarounds creep in. Violations become routine. Not because everyone turns into a cowboy overnight, but because the gap between work as imagined and work as actually done gets filled by practicality. A step gets skipped because it always slows the job. A risk assessment gets treated like paperwork theatre. A spotter disappears because we can see fine from here. A remote control gets used outside design intent because it seems easier. Then, after enough uneventful repetitions, everyone starts calling it normal. That's why you've got to separate active failures from deeper contributors. The active failure is what the person did: exceeded the speed limit, operated without a spotter, didn't attend pre-start, didn't stop at the crossing, didn't do the risk assessment. Fine, record it. But don't stop there. Ask what conditions promoted that action. Was there time pressure, poor visibility, inadequate training, familiarity, distraction, passive tolerance of violations? Then ask what organizational factors created or tolerated those conditions. Was there a communication failure, poor procedure design, weak contractor management, training gaps, no management of change, failure to learn from previous incidents? I've seen plenty of reports where the recommendation is basically, tell workers to be more careful. That's not a recommendation, that's a wish. If the system has been quietly rewarding speed, convenience, or improvisation, your memo won't beat it. The system wins every time. Remember that line from the material about risk-taking being rewarded with convenience, comfort, or time saved? That's the whole game. Risky behaviour often works, until it doesn't. So the workplace keeps reinforcing it. Not deliberately, maybe, but effectively. And effective beats intention every day of the week. So when a workaround becomes accepted practice, don't act scandalized like it fell from the moon. Ask what the job was quietly teaching. Because if normal work requires bending the rules to get the outcome, then the problem isn't the worker being naughty. The problem is the system is running on borrowed luck. So how do you investigate behaviour properly? Simple to say, harder to do. You ask one question over and over. What made this behaviour make sense at the time? Not after the incident. Not from the office. Not once everyone's had a coffee and a lawyer. At the time. In that moment. With that information. With that equipment. With that layout. With those pressures. With that supervision. With that history of, this is how we do it. What made it make sense? And to answer that, you need proper data gathering. The guides are pretty blunt on this. Gather as many relevant facts as possible and validate them as facts. Start with a PEPO Mark 1. Brainstorm your likely data sources. Then go out and gather. Visit the scene. Take photographs. Review documents, permits, JSAs, procedures, maintenance records, training records. Speak to the people involved and the people around the work. If needed, use subject matter experts. Cross-check what you expected to find against what you actually found. Then build your PEPO Mark 2 and separate contributing from non-contributing factors. That distinction matters. If everything's a contributor, nothing is. Then interview properly. Don't barge in like a copper in a bad TV drama. Prepare, establish rapport, explain your role. Interview as soon as practical, but not while someone's in shock or pain. Start broad, free recall. Tell me in your own words what happened. Then open questions. Then active listening. Then paraphrasing. Closed and leading questions only to clarify what you've already got. And for the love of all things decent, avoid loaded questions. Why were you so careless? Is not investigation. It's accusation with a clipboard. Also remember, witness memory is wobbly. Perception, retention, and recall all get bent by stress, elapsed time, distraction, contamination, interview skill, location. So don't build your whole case on one statement and a hunch. Cross-check, validate. Keep your emotions in check. No premature conclusions.
That effective investigator list in the workbook gets it right. Integrity, neutrality, communication, persistence, critical thinking, asking the whys. All the stuff that sounds boring until you realize it's the difference between learning and garbage.
After that, organize the data into a timeline. Start at the point where control was lost, then work backwards and forwards. A good timeline shows pre-incident events, the incident, and post-incident control. It helps you see what happened, when, and where the gaps are. Once that's built, analysis gets sharper because you can line up actions with conditions and conditions with organizational factors.
And here's the payoff. If you want to change behavior for good, fix systems. Fix the procedure, fix the planning, fix the supervision, fix the training, fix the design, fix the conflicting goals, fix the missing defense. Use recommendations that are actually smarter and based on the hierarchy of controls, not just another admin band-aid because it's cheap and looks busy. People are accountable for what they do, absolutely. But if you want fewer repeat incidents, fewer recycled findings, and less nonsense in your reports, stop treating behaviour like a character flaw. Treat it like evidence. Evidence of how the system was really working. That's enough from me for today. Next time we'll keep poking at the bits people love to avoid. Until then, ask better questions and don't let human error do all the heavy lifting.